Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jennifer Phillips Russo, coming to you from the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program weekly podcast. I'm here with Kevin Martin. He's going to talk about some information that we had sent out today to us in regards to Small Business Administration disaster loans. So perfect timing, right? All right, and I'll just send it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Jen. This is an old program that's been modified a little bit to respond to COVID-19. So small business disaster loans have always been an important part of recovering from any typically natural disaster. Small businesses that sustain damage from the disaster are going to be eligible for loans. And that's going to include loans across the United States for this particular disaster. So every state is going to qualify. So if you have a small business that has any damages that they can document, you can apply for these loans. I wanted to talk a little bit about the terms of those loans and what they might look like, which might explain why you'd be interested in them.
Can I ask a question and interrupt you? I'm sorry.
Sure.
It's easier for me to just give you the look so when we're together, but since there's social distancing. So you say you're going to talk a little bit about the terms of the loans, but this is any small business? It doesn't just have to be agriculture? This is for...
Right. So okay. There's enough funding available with the Small Business Administration and the way that's run. So this is not part of USDA. They typically run, if you're involved in farming and you've gotten government sponsored or subsidized loans before, you're used to going to USDA, your county office. This is actually through the Small Business Administration. And they do have local offices typically, but for this event, I think it's probably going to be mandatory. It'd certainly be recommended that you apply online. And one of the highlights of this type of funding is that the government has long recognized that disasters create sudden instability, and getting any kind of a loan during a disaster can be tricky. I think we talked about that on the last podcast in terms of credit really drying up in the overall market, and that applying to agriculture as well. So you'll actually be eligible to receive funding if you want it before they've determined your eligibility for the loan. So there's an initial process where they would decide if you were eligible for basically an advance on the loan. And that would allow you to receive your initial amount of funding within 5 days. After signing the loan 5 days document. After signing the loan closing documents.
Wow. Okay, so, I have a question.
Yep.
Because sometimes it makes me nervous. So I'm sure that there are other people out there that would make nervous as well. So this is an online application? That doesn't make you nervous at all? That you don't go in person? How do you know it's something secure?
So that actually is normally something I would probably scoff at a little bit, because I'm pretty comfortable doing transactions online. But it is an important point to make, because a lot of businesses do offer consulting help with small business administration loans. So if you just Google it, you will find .com addresses that I'm not sure if they're a scam or not. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a scam, but they're not services that you need to pay for. You want to make sure you're going to disasterloan.sba.gov, and a .gov site is going to be a red flag, or I guess a green flag, to let you know that that's a safe place to go, that it's a secure site, that you are actually where you're supposed to be. And actually, let me share this with you.
That's perfect.
This is what their website looks like today. And hopefully this comes through on the recording. This is disasterloan.sba.gov. They're down at the moment because they're expecting a lot of applicants in response to the COVID-19 issues. So they're retooling their website to try to create capacity and a streamlined application process to handle everything. So they've been down all day today. I think they're supposed to be back up tomorrow. So I can't actually even show you what that website's going to look like. I could have shown you what it looked like the day before yesterday, but my guess is that it's going to look substantially different. That's why they've taken it down.
So what are the qualifications for it? I know we already talked about any small business, but this has to be related to coronavirus, or can you just say it's related to coronavirus? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some flexibility in terms of showing that you were damaged by coronavirus. Obviously, it's going to be a little trickier for farmers because as essential businesses, so far, we haven't seen the disruptions that we've seen in other areas. It's possible that we will see those disruptions if supply chains get disturbed, or if labor isn't available to do fruit harvesting or something like that, particularly like a fruit harvest event where food was wasted. But I think obviously with all the restrictions in place, things like restaurants are more directly impacted, and that would touch on wineries as well.
I was just going to say that.
Mm-hmm. So, these retail businesses, that's what is in everybody's mind right now. These retail businesses that are closed or mostly closed to business and are losing revenue every day. But that being said, if a grower has an employee that is quarantined, or they are quarantined themselves, and that results in losses, whether it's labor lost or actually, physical or crop loss related to the fact that they didn't have available labor, that's going to be an area where it will be very easy for them to show damage. It will be interesting to see. They won't be able to do this now, or you as growers won't be able to do this now. But if there are issues with pricing because of demand, if there are issues with trade and exports, any kind of indirect issues like that may create some eligibility for this type of loan.
So how much can you ask for?
So you can ask for $2 million, and it can be financed for up to 30 years. Interest rates vary based on the applicant and the credit rating, the credit score of the applicant and its business, as well as the size in terms of the loan. And it'll vary from 1.75% to 3.75%. So pretty favorable terms, particularly in this market. For longer period loans, they're definitely going to look for collateral. But if you don't have collateral, they're not necessarily going to require it. So my guess would be if you have a lot of collateral, like 100 acres of grapes, and you already have a loan against that, that's going to be a little bit more troublesome because they are going to look for your ability to repay these loans. It's not really a giveaway. It is a real loan process, but it is basically subsidized in terms of making sure you get lower interest rates with less collateral. But they do still want to make sure you can pay it back. So if you're in the type of business that doesn't have any collateral, they're not going to exclude you for not having the ability to provide it.
So you had said that there's a maximum interest rate of 3.75. Is that a fixed rate? Whatever you sign in at is what you get, or do you know if it's okay?
Yeah, and these are actually fixed in the law. So for this disaster, the rate will be between the 3.75 and the 1.75 for the whole disaster, regardless of what happens to interest rates. So I think there are going to be a lot of growers, if they do qualify for these loans, might not qualify today. So if they end up getting them in 6 months or during harvest or after harvest, then those interest rates would be the same because they're set by law.
Okay.
The other thing I think we should probably add, other than the economic damage that they have to show, is that if for some reason you're a not-for-profit or a food cooperative, these types of businesses would actually qualify with the same terms, but they would qualify potentially for lower interest rates. And also businesses that have employees called up for active military duty would qualify to borrow against these loans as well. Again, showing an economic harm because of a lost employee.
Right. Well, I'm glad that I think they're being very proactive about this. I'm glad that that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, this could be really helpful for some of the wineries in particular. But like I said, it's really not limited to them. If we do have growers that sustain economic harm, this will be a good, maybe the best option for them. And on that note, I do want to touch on the fact that some legislation was passed today that will be providing some grant type loans to small businesses who are damaged. But again, that legislation was passed today. Basically, mostly what we really know is it's $350 billion. We don't know really who it's for, what it's for. The regulations, I think, are going to have to get ironed out, and people are actually going to have to read the law to figure that out. So it's probably nothing to get excited about today, but within the next couple of weeks, I think we'll know if that has the ability to benefit some of our growers or processors or wineries.
And we can certainly do another podcast on that then.
We certainly will. Yeah. So I just, stay tuned, and maybe don't put all of your eggs in the small business disaster loan basket. There may be some other options as well.
Okay, great. So we're talking a little bit about the labor force. I would actually like to ask any of our growers out there and industry representatives if they are at all concerned with some of the borders being shut down and having to bring in some of our labor. And if you have any questions about that, or just what is your feeling about it, if you would leave a comment below so that we can look further into it for you and see if there's any news or resources out there. You have anything to add about that one?
Yeah, I mean, the big news has really been around the closing or restricting of international borders. You sent an article around today showing how it's already started to affect Europe. H2A workers that aren't already here probably shouldn't be counted on. For Concord growers in our region, that's not a significant portion of their labor. I don't know whether or not that will indirectly affect them if their resident labor force goes to work for people who normally hire H2A workers. I think that's something that's why we're asking you. We want to hear from you to see if you think, or see if you already know that that's going to affect you. Because I don't think those H2A workers are going to come. And
it is a fluid situation.
Yeah. But I guess we already know that the ones that were supposed to be here, we'll say this week and last week, aren't here. So it really depends on what that schedule is and when they're expected to come. Mm-hmm. Anybody who was supposed to come in November, and that's kind of a big thing in the Finger Lakes for the vineyard businesses that use H2A workers, they're here. Other businesses, I think it's more of an open question. Other types of crop production that are more intensive in the summer, you look at vegetables and things like that. So if you start to see your labor pool being used by the vegetable industry or the fruit industry, the summer fruit industry for harvest, if that starts to creep into your supply of labor, then we certainly want to hear about it. We want to see what we can do. I think Cornell already has some ideas. Some other governments also have some ideas. So we'll see what we need to do in those terms, in terms of trying to see what we can do to help with that situation.
And of course, as always, please let us know if there's something you want to learn more about. If there's something that you need, you can always reach us at our emails or our numbers that were sent out into the crop update, which, Mr. Martin, I do want you to double check that, because for some reason I have this odd feeling that I've put an incorrect email out there for you. Are you receiving emails?
I don't know.
I think I put 47 and it might be 67.
So my email address is kmm52@psu.edu. So if you want to shoot me an email, you can do so there.
Hopefully it's correct. Pretty sure it's correct, but just double check. And mine is jjr268@cornell.edu.
And as always, you can reach us either, through email or our cell phones. We're not in the office. You can tell we're working remotely. We actually had some technical issues today. So
not on the farm.
Yeah, you can see the sun is setting behind me. Next week, we'll do a podcast that the lighting will be a lot better, but we're doing our best as we work from home and practice social distancing, and we'll definitely join you next week. Also, feel free to join our open office hours. You can read about those in the crop update for scheduling and ask any questions you have. Since we're fairly limited in terms of our actual office hours, we are doing virtual ones. And again, you can comment down below if you have questions and you want to ask them that way.
There are a lot. We've just put them on the email or on the website yesterday. So if you go to LERGP.com, there is a lot of resources out there for just dealing with the COVID situation that's going on. So take a look out on the website and see if there's anything there that's of help to you.
All right. And thanks again for joining us this week. We will see you next week.
Okay. Take care, everybody.